ho! Hello everyone, Klaire Fluffle here, and I know this one's going to be a controversial pick. In fairness, I feel like you could rank this one anywhere, and I think it'd get the same responses. You could absolutely call Forgotten Land the star child of the series. Get it? Star child for Kirby. I'm a laugh riot. Please like the video and ring that notification bell after subscribing if you like my stuff. Thank you! Back on track, Forgotten Land is a serious fan favorite, but the music's a bit less universally praised. From what I can gather, people outside of the fandom like it a lot, but internally is where that political strife begins. It's overrated, it's underrated, the main theme is used too much, it's used in really clever ways. So what does this puppy think? Well, you can find everything out 2 whole days early on my Patreon, and be called a Puptrin if you check out my Patreon, linked in the description, for neat perks. Special thanks to my head-patting Fluffle fan Puptrins, Biohazard, Furiol, Jade, Tyke, and remember, Miss K says, go Pokeball! I love you guys. And with that, here we are, in the right game this time. With all of the fancies out of the way, yes, Forgotten Land. Easily one of the biggest Kirby games ever in many ways. It's the first traditional game with a large 3D scope. There is plenty to do in the game itself. It's the first game to sell more than the original Dreamland and is still selling plenty of copies to this very day. The game is massive. And many agree, obviously not everyone in the entire world loves it, but this has easily become one of, if not the, most beloved Kirby games ever. So what about the music? Believe it or not, like I said before, it is kind of polarizing. Many people love it for being the fun, upbeat music that you would expect out of Kirby, while still having more down-to-earth stuff befitting of Forgotten Land, but others say the main theme is used too much and it puts a big damper on the entire thing. Those aren't the only argument for each side, mind you, but based on the fact that I'm ranking it 18th, that kinda tells you nothing about which side I'm on. If you've watched earlier rankings, you already know, please do blah blah, etc, etc. But for the bigger picture, here we are. Here we go. Dang it. To start off strong, I absolutely love the variety of tones here. Upbeat and cheery, intimidating and creepy, energetic and intense, somber and quiet, begins slow and escalates, stays upbeat and fun throughout, and you even got your this is used for something totally random, why is it so good kind of tracks. My favorite example of that last style is the music that plays when you enter the theater to watch cutscenes. The name, Please Don't Inhale the Patrons, is hilarious, and the track itself is equally adorable. Again, you only hear this in the theater. Why is it so cute? Tragic as the fact that it only plays in the theater may be, it makes discovering it that much better. There are other less popular tracks that I really enjoy. The Meta Knight Cup lobby music, the ambiance that plays in the beginning of Point of Arrival, even some cutscene tracks here and there are really good. Special mention has to go to the intense part of Lunch Rush though, if only for the Waddle Dee shouting, "Winner!" Said, due to the game's popularity, a lot of the tracks people really love are also the tracks that I really love. We're not gonna get into my favorites right away, but for some of them that I very much appreciate, there's A Trip to a Live Wall, Abandoned Beach, Waddle Dee's Weapon Shop, the Tilt and Roll tracks. I gotta love those, they're very trolly. Try Again Tomorrow, there are so many good tracks here to choose from. And I know I just listed early game stuff for the most part, and that's what happens when you're looking at the sound test and going, oh yeah, I really like that one. Anyways, what's next? Oh, I really like that one. Anyways, what's next? But unlike Block Ball, I don't think this game is front-loaded. To avoid spoilers and not go too late game, there's Burning Churning Power Plant, Forgo's Treasure, Pitch Black Valley, The Wastes Where Life Began. Jeez, there's so much here that I really like. But to talk about my favorites, I think we should start with the most contentious pick, and one that I'm definitely going to be talking about in the negatives, don't worry, Running Through the New World. I want to talk about this now because isolated, I love it so much. It starts small, pretty cute actually, and just builds. It also has, of all things, kind of some personal humor to it, since my favorite part is the one that they didn't show in any of the trailers. I don't know, that just makes me laugh. Of course, you know, I have to bring up where it plays in the game for the first time as well, association, all that. I'll say it here, this is the best use of a singular track this series has ever had, and it's not even close. Learning the controls in Point of Arrival with that ambiance in the background, as mentioned earlier, in a fairly claustrophobic forest, then exiting that forest and seeing this enormous wide open space for you to just run around and explore in the first minutes of the game is a moment of my life that I'm never going to forget. I know, I live quite the eventful life. The crazy part is that I don't even think the game peaks here, but it makes one fantastic first impression. Some other favorites of mine that aren't my singular favorite include fast-flowing waterworks, Through the Tunnel, and geez, really all of the Wandaria tracks, but if I have to limit myself to one, I would go with Welcome to Wandaria. Fast-flowing waterworks is fantastic. It starts so somber and slow as you venture through what is essentially a deserted sewer that, as you go along, builds and booms at the end. I just love how triumphant it sounds by the time it's done, and yet, despite the tonal differences, still manages to loop perfectly back to the beginning. Brings you back down to earth before going wild again. It's so good. Through the Tunnel is a bit more standard, but even more fun. I love the little intro bit, it's really cute, but after that, it's just solid Kirby music through and through. Not as much to say on it compared to the last one, or the next one really, but it's equally good. As for Welcome to Wandaria, listen to the opening. Just listen to this opening. It doesn't let up after that headbanger either. There's so much here of this whole track that I just love. You ever play through a level and you're bopping your head and you're not doing it in sync with the game, but with the music? That's me with these drums in the background. It's such a good beat. Now, of course, I'd be remiss to mention how you zoom into the first level with that incredible opening playing. It certainly helped my first impression of Wandaria be even better than it already was. And that ending bit where the whole thing culminates and loops perfectly back to the start. Crispy Chef's Kiss. Absolutely fantastic. That said, my 2 favorite tracks are probably your 2 favorite tracks. To start with the one I'm ever so slightly less keen on, Sword of the Surviving Guardian, Mennonite's battle theme. Holy moly, it is so good. So much that can be said about it, in particular how many tracks are implemented here that are iconic to Mennonite. I just can't help but gush about how fantastic it is. My first playthrough of Forgotten Land is actually archived. You can watch it over on my Streambots channel, linked at the end of the video. And when I got to Mennonite that first time, you could practically hear the joy emanating from my body just from that music alone. The fight itself is a genuine highlight of the whole game for me, which only helps this music even more. Everything surrounding it alongside the intensity and freaking bop. I love this so much. Just fantastic. A highlight of not only Forgotten Land, but Kirby as a whole. Though, when I made the first draft of the Kirby soundtrack rankings, I had Forgotten Land really only like 1 or 2 spots above Star Allies, well below the likes of Fighters 2 and Super Kirby Clash. Maybe I was being a bit harsh, but what the heck, changed my mind to put it at 18th. And there's some little things, like I listened to the soundtrack, remembered how great things like Don't Inhale the Patrons and Fast Flowing Waterworks, stuff like that. But if you follow the channel long enough, or you've caught on to patterns throughout these rankings, there's one character I've been talking a lot about. You knew Dedede was crushing everything else. Be completely real with you guys. This is my single favorite track in all of Kirby. It just got everything. The most obvious being, holy moly, it's such a banger. It feels so strong, if that makes sense. There's a clear melody here and nothing distracts from that, but some of these notes, they're just going so hard. Of course, scattered throughout the whole thing are, well, the roars of Dedede. I love them so much. They're so good. If you know anything about me, you know I love Dedede a lot. Right next to Kirby as my favorite character in the series, so unlike a track such as, say, Highness Phase 2 in Star Allies, which is also one of my favorites, I can tie this to a character I love with all of my heart. The fight itself is easily one of my favorite things in the game. The actual build-up to the Dedede reveal, low-key, is one of the best things in the entire game, period. And the fact that this plays briefly in the rematch later on in the game adds even more to this. The Wild Mask Dedede track, by the way, not quite as good as this, but it's still an easy top 10 track in Forgotten Land, so I could really care less. It's fantastic. Back to Roar of Dedede, though. It feels really satisfying as a longtime fan because it not only serves as a really good reminder of what came before, Dedede's base theme from Dreamland, the additions made in Superstar, a little bit added in Star Allies. I honestly even get some Dedede Destroyer Z from Battle Royale vibes. And if you know me, you know I almost said chat, you know I love Battle Royale, but it stands out so much on its own in ways that I feel like are going to be impossible to replicate. How do you top those literal roars in the background? Kumazaki went ham! The hard rock infused with these bombastic trumpets, the orchestra playing towards the end to keep up the intensity but cooling it down ever so slightly to make that ending bit before the loop go even crazier? This is the first, and at the time of this writing, only instance I've listened to a Kirby track and I've thought genuinely, wow, I don't know how they're gonna top this. I wouldn't put it past them to be able to, especially with Dedede. Seriously, his themes are always close to, if not the actual best themes, in their respective games. But when this part in particular comes on, like, hello! Next game is a Dream Buffet, which obviously ranked higher, so I'm glad they didn't just, like, stop making Kirby music, I guess, but it's gonna be really hard to top this. Good luck, Kirby composers, I believe in you. Well, more to the point, I love your music. Wow, I really just talked about Roar of Dedede for as long as I did, huh? I need a break. How about we get another guest on here? It's been a while. This should do nicely. Take it away, Mackle. Or Mackle. Should have figured out how to say your name before the start of this video.
If you're the first mainline Kirby game with a vocal track, clap your hands. Clap, clap. If you're the first mainline anyway, Forgotten Land's time to shine. Yippee! A stunning soundtrack Forgotten Land provides for us, and you can tell the composers wanted this one to be special. Yuta Ogasawara, Hirokazu Ando, Jun Ishikawa, Yuki Shimuka, the four magnificent composers of HAL made another full-course feast for the ears! That's right, a full-course feast for the ears. Ears can eat. You didn't know that? Maybe that's your sixth sense. Get used to it. Anyway, the only real complaint that I'd have with Forgotten Land's soundtrack is that the Welcome to the New World motif wasn't used as creatively throughout the game as Winning to the New World's motif. But I can excuse this because the song is just a source of raw power. You know what I'm talking about. I like that part when it goes. I am so sorry for that. Sorry, Claire, you're gonna lose subscribers for that one. I wouldn't say it's the most creatively used in other tracks, except for when it was used in Roche Limit Sweep! Seriously, when you have a final boss theme with 8 different midway transitions depending on how fast you defeat them, you know the composers had all of the fun with it. Regardless of the fact that the same 2 light motifs are practically everywhere, they still match the tone and create comfort, fun, and dramatic tension based on what's happening, and that goes for every track. Fast-flowing waterworks, anything in Winter Horns. Welcome to Wonderia, my beloved. To this day, in my personal opinion, Forgotten Land has one of the most fitting soundtracks and sound design for a Kirby game. Also, Elflin's in it, and anytime he's related to a music track, it makes me want to cry. Especially the music track titled Elflin. Did you know that Elflin was in this game? I think my time's up. Claire, take it away.
Alrighty, thanks for the tag, buddy. I'm back and ready to roll to talk about why I'm ranking the soundtrack so low. Listen, the highs are some of the best in the series, but if I don't love a track, there's a pretty good chance I don't really care for it. I would never call the music in this game generic like I would for a game like Star Allies, but it has a similar issue of very high highs and low enough lows. People give all the love to basically every track in Winter Horns, including Makel, sorry buddy, but none of the tracks here have ever done anything for me. Except for Roar of Dedede, which I could talk about right now. And of course, this includes the world map theme, which leads me into issue number 2. The main theme, I gotta agree, it's used way too much. I don't hold this against running through the new world specifically, I still think that's fantastic, but sometimes it feels like a coin toss if a track is going to be new, exciting, fresh, and fun, or if it's just gonna be the main theme again. And listen, I know Kirby is pretty guilty of reusing its main theme throughout many of the other games, but Forgotten Land, it's just so much. It really taints the soundtrack to a point where sometimes listening to it, I legitimately kind of get annoyed. And even for a soundtrack as generic as Star Allies, I wouldn't ever say I got annoyed. The only other soundtrack that I would say that about is Nightmare in Dreamland, maybe Extra Epic Yarn. And if I'm comparing you to those two games, there is a serious problem here. That said, I really don't like talking negatives, especially about Forgotten Land, which straight up is one of my favorite games of all time, so I'm gonna stop there. But unlike most soundtracks I find inconsistent, the highs here do more than enough to make up for the lows. Again, Roar of Dedede alone, you saw me talk about that. That by itself probably shot this up a couple of rankings. I really do have to hand it to Yuta Ogasawara specifically here. Nearly all of my favorite tracks in this game are his. Jun Ishikawa, I love him. He's a close second, but for this game, no, I say even his tracks don't compare. There's really so much more that I could say about Forgotten Land, but these rankings aren't going to finish themselves. I really got to get back to those. So until I see you all again, I've been Klaire. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you around. Roar of Dedede is the best! Bye!